عليكم السلام. Yeah.
Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. So, uh, over the years, I try and, obviously studying here, studying there, reading this, reading that. There's certain quotes in different sciences that I've kind of just like written down. I felt this is particularly useful. I should really be aware of this and write it down. So one of the little kind of chapters I have in my notes is raqa'iq or riqaq, which is things to do with the heart, things that kind of like move you. It's not a fiqh point, it's not an aqidah point, it's something that like touches you, like, wow, that's really deep. And so I've just over the years been writing these little things down. So I kind of started to put them together in some kind of system. And just wanted to basically share them. Just some of them, the connection between the two, some of them are sometimes loose, sometimes more makes more sense. I've mentioned every single thing, but it was just kind of, it's a nice little nuggets of information that I just found very, very useful. Inshallah, they benefit us uh, all, inshallah. And so at any point anybody has any questions, Bismillah, please feel free to ask. Your microphone should work and just start talking. I don't mind. I mean, just it's up to you, inshallah. So some things on social life. Al-Kumayt, right? Umayyad Shi'i poet. He said, through you have all our lineages come together after great division. Now we are the children of Islam. That is what we are called, and that is our title. And so this touched me. I thought it was important. This is in Jamharat Ash'ar al-Arab. He's referring to the ansab, your nasab. And he's saying that basically before Islam, that's who you were. Right? You are defined as your tribe. Okay, with the coming of Islam, no. You're now defined as your nisba, your lineage is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through Islam. That's who you are. And so now we are all Banul Islam. We used to be the tribe of this or the tribe of that. Now we are Banul Islam. So this is a really important thing to understand, particularly coming from a Shi'i, right? Like, oh, he's Shi'i, he's over there, or he's that, he's over here. Like, no, we're all the same family, right? We're all La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. This is what joins us. And this is a stronger bond than it is division. And we have to always understand that. That's our pride, that's our worth, and that's our loyalty to La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Al-Hasan al-Basri. So if you knew the random books, these are random books, right? This is Al-Amali, literally means random lists of things. Dictations from Az-Zajjaji. This is a grammarian. It's not even just come across things here and there. So he quotes Hasan al-Basri. He said, by Allah, if you didn't care so much about what the rulers have, they would be more keen. They would be keen more for what you have, but rather you long for what they have, so they don't care about what you have. And you have embarrassed every religious Muslim, every religious person. May Allah embarrass you. So Hasan Basri, he's talking about scholars, shuyukh, maulanas, myself, may Allah protect me, right? Who all they're interested in is trying to find the next big masjid to support them. So they go, in the past, for example, you go to a ruler and say, hey, I'm a scholar of this, fund me, right? And obviously that's a good thing to do for a ruler. It's a bad thing to do for a scholar, right? So I believe Sufyan al-Thawri, could have been Sufyan al-Thawri, I'm not sure. He said the best ulama, so the best salatin, the best rulers are those who are on the footsteps, the doorsteps of the ulama. And the worst ulama are those who are on the doorsteps of the salatin, of the rulers. Right? So he says basically all you care about. So if you didn't care so much about the rulers, you want to get a good paycheck. They would be more keen, typo here, for what you have. They wouldn't want to know deen. But when they know that all you're interested in is a paycheck, right? And there's nothing wrong with asking for a paycheck, right? From a masjid or from whatever it is. There's nothing else. But the point is, they people know people can smell, right, what you like, what you care about. Right? They can taste it. And so basically he said, you religious people, you qurra, you Maulanas, you shuyukh, you've just become worldlings. And so now when you're teaching the deen, the people of the world, the people who need to learn this, are not interested because they don't see anything in you. You're not an example. You're just somebody who loves money, loves this, loves that, right? But rather you long for what they have, so they don't care about what you have. And I remember this specific feeling, right? A specific feeling. I was perhaps 12, maybe 13, maybe 14. I don't think I was 14. I think I mean like maybe 10, 11, 12, something like that. So I remember I was with my dad, and he was with a specific group of Muslims, right? I just remember this particular feeling. And you have these memories where the emotion is recorded more than the scene, right? It's like a dream almost, right? So I remember this particular scene is where, I didn't grow up in a Muslim environment. There was no Muslims around really. So it was a rare thing to be with Muslims. So anyway, my dad takes me to this thing and it's just men, okay? And men are eating at this table. I remember the men eating at this table, and they're joking about some singer. I think Mariah Carey, is that her name? I think I'm pronouncing her name right. And joking about her, something like that, right? And saying, yeah, if only, or something like that. And you could just tell that these Muslims were people of Iman, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alamin, believe in Allah and believe in the Messenger. And people of Salah, they care about halal and haram. But the people of the dunya, right, the joke and the ambience was, yeah, if only, right? Like classic, it's kind of like, so like, it's kind of like, well, classic brothers joke about polygamy. It's like, brothers, like, it's just low, right? It's just kind of, when you're sitting there and brothers start joking about polygamy, it's kind of like, it's this kind of no difference about some guy in a bar talking about women. It's like, it's kind of the same thing because it's just low, right? It's just like you're just a worldling, right? And I'm not against polygamy. I'm just saying like this kind of like these jokes that men will have, for example, it's just indicative of this lowness and like this obsession with something that's kind of like, okay, if you want to go ahead and do it, you do it. But like, it's like you're interested in it is a worldly interest. It's not an ukhrawi interest. So this is this really important thing, right? That the ulama, right? And so many times we're let down by the ulama, by akhlaq, right? The akhlaq, bad akhlaq of the ulama, corruption of the ulama, um, genuine lack of zuhud of the ulama, right? It's very, very common. It's very, very hard to be someone in the limelight and not be corrupt. So hard because you have all of these authorities that you're answering to, and it's very hard to say no to everybody apart from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's very difficult. So may Allah guide us, right? Go ahead, Badr. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was actually curious, like if someone is in a gathering like that, and then like something like that happens, this isn't, it's not like it's haram or anything to talk like that, but as you pointed out, like you pointed out just like the things to note about it. Like, what would you say as like advice to like, and how would you say it so that you don't kind of become like a bummer or like kind of like the
Yeah. So
quote
I mean,
unquote like annoying guy?
is it haram to be a worldling? It's not haram, is it? I mean, somebody, for
No.
example, they say, listen, I'm going to do what is halal, avoid what is haram, and I like cars. I like food, you know, I like politics. I like talking. You sit there and everyone's just chatting, and you feel that everyone's just chatting because they like to chat, right? What's wrong with that? So you're not obliged to do command the right and forbid the wrong, but you just know you're not among people of the akhirah. You're not among people who like love Allah and love His Messenger and like they're not like the Salaf. You're just like in a different world. You're around people of ghafla, of heedlessness. So you don't have to command the right, forbid the wrong. You just know the environment you're in. That's all. Right? Just like your own kids, right? What are you going to do? The kids, for example, they're like, with my own kids, right? For example, my kids like, oh, that's what is it? What is that? The new Tesla, what's it called? The new car that's coming.
Cybertruck.
Cybertruck. Oh, it's amazing. And I'm like, so should I be that like, brother, boys, focus on the air? And it's like, dude, they're kids, It's like, of course they're gonna like cool cars. So you can't be continually like saying, no, turn to Allah, right? It's like, okay. So I know it's not really an issue to like do command the right, forbid the wrong, but you just know that it's like, right? Like, so, so the same thing is like, it's just like, so there's a sheikh and it's like, what's your, it's just a job, right? Many people, that's just your job. Say, mashallah, you have an amazing voice. Yeah, I have an amazing voice. I could be this kind of singer or I could leave Taraweeh and it's the same. It's just like, it's just a voice, right? And there's just nothing there. And it's rare in reality. It's rare for people to be realized mutahaqqiq in what they're teaching. It's very rare. Like most people, it's ego. Most people, it's rare, you know, to find somebody who's like this combination of they've actually like they've realized what they're teaching, what they're turning, and it touches them to the core. It's a rare kind of thing. So again, you don't have to command the right, forbid the wrong, Allahu Alam, but you just know who you're around. Right? Smile and move on. And Amr ibn Maymun is quoting, he said that they were discussing about the death of Sayyidina Umar, right? Sayyidina Umar passed away and they said, like, oh my God, what's going to happen? It was a huge problem, right? And so he said to them, he said, you all wish that this dunya would remain, but in reality, Allah has refused to let it remain. Right? You want people to live forever, but they're not going to do that. Right? The dunya disappears with the disappearance of the righteous. So this is a really, really important thing. The other day I was talking to some people, right, who do not attend my classes, right? They do not attend my classes, right? I have like a fan club, right? Badr is my number one fan, right? And I also other people who are part of my fan club, right? And so obviously I don't want to have a fan club, but there's people who like benefit from what you're doing, right? Inshallah ta'ala, they listen and inshallah they apply, inshallah ta'ala, right? But there's a lot of people who just talk, right? And like really, really so they're like, oh, Sheikh Fareed, when you're around, it's like this, Sheikh Fareed. It's like, you don't even come to my classes, right? Number one. Number two, you have no idea what I'm like. And number three, you have no idea what actual righteous people are like, right? So these people their world is their family, their world is their office, their world is TV. So when they find somebody who is like 5% religious like myself, they're like, wow, Allahu Akbar, I'm around somebody who's amazing. This is like I'm in Jannah, right? Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, they love the deen, which is good, right? But it's very, very important to find ulama and find salihin. Like they do exist. There are lots of amazing people in the world. They might not be in your street, they might not be in your city right now, but they're all over the place. And this is a really important thing, right? Meeting righteous people, like meeting people who are like a standard. Like that's a standard of what the deen is. And so, so somebody who's like, oh yeah, just, I'm on YouTube. Like, YouTube or Zoom is not a place for deen. Right? This is just, we're just doing this because, but we should wake up tomorrow morning and say, Ya Allah, alhaqni bis salihin. Allah, make me be with the righteous and try and find them. Move city, move country, look around the world to try and be with righteous people. Right? There's no, like, we're not tied in a ball on a chain to life. Right? Imam Shafi spoke about this, and it's a very important thing because when they disappear, it's over. Right? Like I saw that with my own eyes. My dad saw that with his own eyes. Countless, every single person, talk to any scholar, you'll see it with your own eyes. Right? This person was here, Nobody took their place. So my dad, for example, Maulana Yusuf bin Nouri, right? Like the heir, the inheritor, Maulana Anwar Kashmiri, right? Who was his heir? Nobody. Nobody took his place, right? My dad saw this with his own eyes as well. My namesake, Shahid Allah Faridi, right? I'm named after Baba Farid in Pakpatan, and Shahid Allah Faridi, who was uh, a peer, right? He's a teacher of Tasawwuf. And so my dad saw him in Pakistan, and he saw him die with leaving no heir. Nobody took his place, right? That's why I grew up where I grew up. I grew up in the middle of nowhere in England because my dad was like, that's it, end of it's the akhir zaman. That's it. Like the dunya. My dad, did you know Tarikh Ibn Abi Khaythama? No, he doesn't. Right? He doesn't have this book, but he knew this concept. Like the dunya disappears, it disappears with the righteous. Like, khalas, that's it. We've seen people and they're not there anymore, right? You see people and they're not there anymore. It's scary. Um, and so it's very important to, so in Jordan in my lifetime, my short lifetime, right, when I was in Jordan, Sheikh Nuh Ali Salman, right, the former Mufti of Jordan, somebody who was really amazing in the dunya and the akhirah and everything, really amazing person. Like when you see like fatwa, like it's not fatwas in a technical fatwa, it's like fatwa that meant something, it was really deep. He was a very deep person of amazing wara, amazing scruples, amazing wisdom, right? He was the ambassador to Iran, right? Imagine that. Jordanian ambassador to Iran. So he knows the dunya, he knows the siyasa, he knows politics, knows these things. He's not somebody who doesn't know what's going on. So he's a really amazing person. He passed away. Who took his place? MashaAllah, good people. Like my teacher, one of my teachers, Sheikh Ahmed Hassanat, he's now the Grand Mufti of Jordan. Is he on the level of Sheikh Nuh al Salman? In fiqh, probably greater. But in deen, like that comprehensive thing, is he on the same level? No. Allahu alam. La nuzaki and Allah ahad. We're not going to tell who's in paradise and who's in hell and who's this and who's that. But there's something about the people. They're very different. Right? He passed away. Who else? Abdul Qadir Al-Ani, when I was there. Abdul Qadir Al-Ani, huge scholar, right? One of my friends and teachers, Dr. Sheikh Suhail Hanif, he's now in charge of Zakat Foundation in England. He said we used to attend his class and we're just there out of adab, like we have no idea what he's talking about. Like we don't understand what he's saying. It's too advanced. Right? We're like lost on what he's actually saying. Right? Very, very special person. Passed away, nobody took his place. Dr. Fadl Abbas, perhaps somebody has taken his place. Sheikh Shu'aib Arnaout, I don't know anybody took his place, right, in hadith. Right, and so in the last century, you have people like Sheikh Albani, rahimahullah, and Sheikh Shu'aib Arnaout, right? Some of the most important people in hadith, right? Obviously, with Sheikh Albani, there's some issues, but he did a lot of work. Right? He did a lot of work. So regardless, but like Sheikh Shu'aib is like, one of the most important muhaqqiqs, right? People who edited and published hadith works, right? The Musnad of Imam Ahmad, 54 volumes, right? Sir Alab and Nubala, I don't know how many volumes, a ridiculous amount of work, right? And so who took his place? I don't know anybody who took his place. And you see this again and again and again. You ask any scholar, oh yeah, so-and-so, who took his place? Right? Sheikh Taha Qaran in South Africa. There was another Sheikh Hendricks something, Sheikh Sirajuddin Hendricks, I believe. Did anybody take his place? I don't know. So this is very important. You're saying that it's like it's okay. It's like no, it's not. Right? Today I was talking to my wife about the widespread nature of fahisha, of haram and people exposure, right? And how kind of gross it's getting. And I was like, remember the hadith, right? I'm sure she's aware of the hadith anyway. But I was like, remember the hadith, the Prophet says, in the end of time, people will have intercourse in the street. That will happen. So it's only going to get worse. So that tells us like this ship is sinking. Right? The ship is sinking and the standards are getting less. So if we just sit around and be like, okay, just YouTube it, right? It's like, no. Go and be with righteous people. So if you think Farid Dingle is a righteous person, you have a problem. I mean, you have a skewed version of the deen. It's not you know, a skewed version of the deen. So it's very important to go and find these people. And that himma, when you're like, yeah, Allah, I want to be righteous people. I want to be righteous people. I want my kids to be around righteous people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give that to you. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give that to you. But when you just sit there and like, it's okay, I'm on YouTube. It's okay, I'm on Zoom. It's okay, and like things are okay. And that's not it's not a mentality to have. Um, Historically, haven't scholars always had this view? Yeah, that's good. The ship has always been sinking, right? But it's very important to, as a reaction to, like, hang on a minute, let's find out for the best people because they're not always going to be followed, right? And there are people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also has his plans. And there are people that you don't realize that coming, right? That you don't know. SubhanAllah, there are people that you don't, the Mahdi is going to come and there will be people like that, right? Who are like, wow, this person came and it's amazing. But we need to have this mentality that صحبة الصالحين, right? I need to have, as a father, for example, as a husband, father, I need to have an income. My children have to have some kind of education, but they don't have to have an amazing education. And I don't need to have an amazing salary, right? I can't be in a situation where I can't make a salary. So I'm like, I'm living in this country, amazing people, I can't work here. Or my kids have no future here, right? So, for example, right, somebody's telling me like, hey, there's this amazing sheikh in Afghanistan right now, but I just can't go there because there's this and that. I understand what you're saying. But the problem is a lot of the times our equation, the way we're thinking is a little bit too extreme. Like I have to have a really good job. Like you don't have to have a really good job, right? You need to be making like $500 a month in most places in the world to survive. And you could probably pull that off, right? I remember when I was in Jordan, pros and cons, many fathers would do this. They would work a little bit and come back and work because they wanted their kids to be in a good environment, right? And what, for what I saw, it was a very good environment, mashallah, righteous people, people who focus in prayer, right? You go to the masjid, there's like a lot of people focusing in prayer. The masjid is full. The average guy doing a khatam every 3 days, and that's like, wow, it's amazing. Tahajjud just being the norm, right? There's a brother, Sheikh Quran Hajj. He's in he's here in the Bay Area. He just like say, yeah, when I go to Yemen and Tarim in Yemen, it's like everybody prays tahajjud, it's just normal. My kids pray tahajjud, right? So like he's just trying to get back there. Like it's amazing. And it's like everyone's amazing. Every guy you meet, Allahu Akbar, right? It's just like normal. It's like the smile on their face, like the nur they have, it's normal, right? So there are a lot of righteous people in the world, but we have to like be physically with these people, right? It's very important because otherwise the dunya disappears with the disappearance of the righteous. On a totally different note, Musnad Ibn Abd Hamid. This hadith is found in different versions, but this particular version was very important. About, again, it's to do with society and an individual. So the Prophet ﷺ said, I swear by he, or by him, right? Not he. I swear by him in whose hands is my soul. None but the kind and compassionate, the Rahim, will enter Jannah. And they said, Ya Allah, Ya Rasulullah, we're all kind. He says, no, I don't mean that. Kindness is not that you're kind to those close that one of you is kind to those close to him. Rather, kindness is that you care for everybody and you feel pain for everybody, right? So you feel pain when you see somebody do the haram because Allah hates it and this person is stabbing themselves. So it hurts you. You feel pain when you kill a cockroach because it had to die, right? You feel pain, right? You're like, what is it? In the Green Mile, is it called Green Mile? The Jimmy, I think his name is, or Johnny or Jimmy, the guy who feels people's pain. I don't know his name. Obviously, you don't watch enough TV. What's his name? Jimmy? Yeah. So like he just holds people and feels their pain. This is what the Prophet was like, right? So obviously very difficult to be an absolute empath, right? That you kind of like continually in tears. But but it's worse to be callous, right? It's worse to be callous that we just don't really care. Like whatever. Like no, it's like I really care. Right? This is how the Prophet was like you hug the Prophet like he really cares, right? Really cares about us. It's a very important thing to understand, right? Like, and again, how do I understand this hadith? By reading the book? Did I learn this online? No. Did I read it from the book? No. I saw it. I saw people like this. Like I know people like this. I know about the Prophet ﷺ because I saw people like this who really care, right? They care about their colleagues. They care about things. They go out of their way. They really, it hurts them. Like so there's a problem in someone's life. It's a problem in their life, right? So we have to be with people to learn these things. And this is Al-Jariri, one of the early Muslims. Not of the, yeah, I guess you can say Salaf Jariri. He's not that early. But so he says, the first generation of people, of Muslims, dealt with each other based on deen itself, on Islam itself. Right? So they had this comprehensive, fully intact, you know, powerful thing called deen. Can't even translate it. It's like the religion itself. Until deen became weak. The second generation dealt with each other on the basis of loyalty, right? Until loyalty disappeared. The third generation dealt with each other on the basis of merely not losing self-respect, al-muru'ah. Like it would be embarrassing to do that, right? You have to invite the person in because it would be embarrassing if you didn't, right? You can't treat the woman that badly because it would be embarrassing otherwise, right? Until self-respect disappeared and people just don't really care. The fourth generation dealt with each other on the basis of avoiding shame, hayat. It would just be so embarrassing, right? So it's not an issue of even saving face, but just like not to embarrass yourself until people no longer had any shame. Thereafter, people started dealing with each other based on personal benefit and personal harm, right? They have this phrase in Farsi, I can't pronounce it properly, call it Salt Musulman, right? Which is, do we have any Afghans here? No, no. But Salt Musulman, salt is a whip, right? Musulman is Muslim. It's like this idea that like people don't keep to basic morals without being forced, right? And so again, instead of saying, "Oh, we're in a bad time, it's really bad," no, but it's important to understand that this helps us to understand ourselves and also helps us understand fit. So ourselves, we should look at this, right? Like when we do things, right? When we make decisions, like what is the decision? Is it like we make the decision based on deen, or is it loyalty, or is it self-respect, right? Or is it like just because it would be shameful, or is it just like I turn up to work because otherwise I wouldn't get paid, right? I turn up to work otherwise, or like I do this because otherwise I'll be personally harmed, right? Is it based on just kind of like personal benefit and personal harm, right? Say sorry to your wife because otherwise she won't be nice to you, right? That's here, right? It's just basically it's just politics, as opposed to like deen. Like it doesn't matter if she's a wife or not. It's like say sorry to her because of deen, because of your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Or at least loyalty, right? Or at least like, bro, have some self-respect. If somebody saw the way you're speaking to your wife, would you feel awkward about that? Like the way you deal with this person, or the way you talk to your kids, or whatever it is. Like you have no shame, right? So it helps us understand, and also helps us understand deen, is that sometimes, right, we find that people become more and more strict, right? Has anybody observed that? Like sometimes you look at the way the process interacted, let's say gender interaction, other kind of things like this. There's more like strictness. Like it seems like there's this afawiyya, there's a kind of like a chillness about the Prophet ﷺ. Like you read the hadith, it's kind of chill, it's kind of relaxed, and then like the books of the fiqh, like super detailed and super kind of like pedantic. Or people seem to be like very, very strict about gender interaction. And then it's like, the Prophet ﷺ is praying and there's women behind him in the masjid, right? And originally they didn't even wear hijab, right? Does everyone know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Right? And you say, well, is there a reason for that? I say, yeah, right? The first generation had deen, right? So imagine I have deen and a woman walks in front of me and I'm like, this is the slave of Allah, right? Amatullah, right? This woman is walking in front of me and she is Amatullah. Like, if this was the slave of some important tribal member in Saudi Arabia at that time, like, I wouldn't look at her in this way because I might get like beaten up or I might get like abused because like she's part of that tribe. So I can't be like that to her, right? I can't look at her in a certain way or talk to her in a certain way because she's part of this tribe, right? She's the slave, the Mawla of this tribe. This is Amat al-Rahman. This is the slave of al-Rahman. I'm really like scared of how I mess with this person, right? I often thought, like, imagine, for example, I was married to somebody who's from Ahl Bayt. Like, it'd be very difficult, right? Like, oh my God, the kind of how I'd have to deal with it because like I'm married to the Prophet's granddaughter. It's really awkward, right? But every single woman is the slave of Allah. So if we have deen, it's like, oh my God, right? It's almost difficult to work with people, right? And that's haya and that's deen is that like you're like scared to like deal with people because I really don't want to be disrespectful because this is the slave of Allah. Like this person has somebody behind them. I don't want to mess with. And then it's like, well, at least be loyal, at least be self-respect, at least have some shame. You don't have any shame. And then it's like, well, you know, personal benefit or personal harm. That's what it comes down to. So that's why you find over time is that particularly in cities, people become a bit more strict because like people just don't have basic akhlaq. There's no deen. And so you have to be strict. You have to police people. Right? Often Imam Abu Hanifa would leave certain things in fiqh kind of vague, and his students would qualify them. Why? Because of this. They're dealing with the next generation. Imam Abu Hanifa's time of the Sahaba, right, and the Tabi'een. Next generation's not the same. So you tell people, for example, focus in prayer, right? And that's not really there. So then okay, well, at least don't do this. Right? At least, what does it mean to break the prayer? Or moving around or talking. But it's like the Sahaba didn't really have that conversation because like I'm talking to Allah. How could I talk to somebody else? Right? Or how could I move around that much? Right? How could I accept that, for example, I'm thinking about other stuff all the time? Like I can't. So it's an issue that like, how much focus is needed in prayer. It's not really a discussion they'd have. For the later scholars, it is because, you know, I'm just interested in have I prayed or not. Does it count as a prayer? Like the way we talk about things, it's very different. I don't have deen. It's a very different thing. So it's useful, helps us understand fiqh. In Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, he said that. He said, like, fiqh gets more and more complex as people get worse. Right? Got to deal with, you know, evidence in a different way because you can't trust people. People have no self-respect. So they say whatever. So may Allah protect us. Totally different topic, or somehow related, but about zuhud, right, and company. It tells us kind of two things. It's a personal thing, it's also a societal thing. Abdullah ibn Salih. So this is again, it's not a book. This book is not a book on a character, by the way. None of these books are. This is a book on character. This is a book on hadith. This is not a book. This is a book on hadith narrators, right? So you just find these amazing things here and there, just randomly, right? So here, this is Tahdhib al-Tahdhib is a classic work that you refer to when analyzing a hadith, right? Is this person a good narrator or a bad narrator? Anyway, I just reading, came through this, just bumped upon it, that uh, Abdullah ibn Salih, one of the students of Layth ibn Sa'ad. Layth ibn Sa'ad was like the Imam Malik of Egypt, right? And he said, I spent 20 years in the company of Layth ibn Sa'ad. Never did he eat lunch or dinner except in the company of others. So this is really, really important, particularly for us modern 21st century Westerners, right? that food traditionally is a social thing, right? Food tastes nice because you eat it with other people. You share things, right? So the way that Layth ibn Sa'ad viewed food was is a tool to do ibadah, and it's a means to bring happiness into the hearts of other people. He did not view food as a goal, right? It's not a thing that he needed, right? So the same thing, you look at a house, like why'd you have a big house? Well, I have a big house, mashallah, because we have people around at my house. We do a khatam of Bukhari every year. We do a khatam of Sunnah Abu Dawood every year. Um, we do a khatam of the Quran. We get together, for example, a kids activity. Like you use the property for something. Okay, what do you use your house for? Nothing. An empty, dead house. Okay, what's the point of a house then? It's pointless. What's the point of a big house that you don't fill it with people doing ibadah? It's pointless. Qiyam al-Layl, mashallah, we had, right? So I remember again, when I was in Jordan, like we felt like this. This is a normal thing. Like a house is full of people, right? That's a normal thing that you do. Fill your house with people. Whereas in the West, we don't do that, right? It's too awkward. People are too embarrassed. People are too shy, right? It's like that's what their house is for. You have a big house, mashallah, California, you have big houses compared to England, right? And it's like fill them with people, right? So it's very strange people how people work, right? People, it's like everything's too emotionally complex. It's like it's not. Just invite people to your house and give them feed them food. Well, how much is it going to cost? I don't know how much it's going to cost. Don't worry about it, right? Whatever you spend is going to come back to you 10 times, so it doesn't matter, right? So the mentality of food should be eaten. The idea of eating by yourself, right? This is again something that you find with Latinos, you find with Italians. Everybody like understands like food is something you eat with people. You do not eat food by yourself. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. The word companion means con pan, right? With bread, the person you eat food, you company. Company means eating food together, right? Con pan with bread. You eat bread together, right? And so this is how he viewed it. A very important thing, right? The whole point of, right? What's this line of poetry? اسقني كأسا وخذ كأسا إليك. Like something ما لذة العيش إلا أن نشترك, right? So the poet, he's talking about the haram, of course, or maybe metaphorically. Often they talk about haram metaphorically. He says, you take a glass and I'll take a glass. The sweetness of life is only when we share, right? So this is this weird life of one person with a phone, right? One person with a computer game, one person with this, one person with their own room, right? Just live life in a very strange way. And we have this, whereas like it's very strange, like it doesn't make any sense. People aren't married, years and years not being married. It's weird, right? So, we have to be with people, be humans that, eat with people, invite people to your house, I don't know, share food. And my neighbor in Jordan, just not, I remember always doing this. He's always sending food to people's houses. No one's gonna call the police if you send food to them, are they? They might be like, they might say no, or they might think like, what do you want from me at some point? Otherwise, it's just, So this is a basic thing that just you find in the East in general. My mom, she was sick in India, right? Before she became Muslim, she was sick in India, I think near Goa. I'm not sure where she was. And she had like hepatitis C, I think it was. And she was just looked after by some random family for like 6 months. That's just normal human beings, right? So we have to outdo basic human beings of the 20th century in order to be basic Muslims. Right? May Allah forgive us, right? So that, food or, normal thing, you always offer food to other people. Buy food, give it to other people. Buy food, give it to people. Right? The normal self-respect, right? Like that you should be happy that your spouse ate your food. as opposed to why did you drink my coffee, right? There's a problem, right? Because it's a serious problem that you're like, oh my God, you finished the food off. Why'd you do that? Like, unless there's a practical reason, right? I'm leaving right now and I really need a cup of coffee right now because I'm super tired and I have to give this thing. Please don't drink my coffee. Like, I can't understand practical reasons, but otherwise, like basic, right? Going back to this previous hadith, right? Is like a basic level of kindness is that you are happy when the people you love take a means of happiness from you. Like when your kids eat your food, you should be happy. When your wife or husband eats your food, you should be happy, let alone other people, right? So it's a very like gross bukhul, cheapness that you're like, oh my God, you finished the food. You should be alhamdulillah you finished the food. Right? I'm very glad that you took it. Right? This is like basic karam, generosity, right? Karam in Arabic is from the word karm, which is grapes, because they used to be generous with wine in the Jahiliyyah, right? The kuffar, the mushrikeen, they are more generous than us. May Allah forgive us, right? It's like they have this understanding. Like in the Jahili poetry, major theme of Jahili poetry, generosity, spending on other people. Kareem, noble, and Kareem, generous, they're the same word. Noble people are generous. Generous people are noble. That's what it means. It's one concept. It's not so you cannot be if you're not generous. You just nobody. It's horrible. Right? It's just like you don't want to share things. Right? You don't want to share your life with anybody. Everybody wants to do their own thing. It makes more money. It's true. It makes more money when everybody buys their own portion. But that's not how that's not deen. And then again with food, right? The mentality of food. Hassan al-Basri, he said this book is on Zuhud itself, right? So you could imagine the Kitab al-Zuhud, it's here, or is it? I don't have it. Um, it's a book it exists in English, so look it up, Kitab al-Zuhud by Ibn Mubarak. It's a book, it's in English, it's an amazing book, compilation of these kind of quotes, right, from the Salaf. So Hassan al-Basri, the great Tabi'een, he said, I have met countless men, meaning Sahaba, right, and Tabi'een, that for the last 70 years have never asked their family to make any specific kind of food. So again, you can see like the mentality, like food is just an excuse for society for doing this thing called company. It's not a goal. Like, oh my God, I can't believe you put too much curry in it. Yeah, oh my God, you put too much spice in it. Why'd you cook it like that? Like, why are you talking? Right? Why'd you talk like that? Like, how low are you that food is that much of a priority to you? Right? So you can measure yourself based on what you're interested in. Like if you're interested in Allah, you are the slave of Allah and you're the highest person. If you're the slave of coffee, then that's who you are. If you're the slave of, I don't know, something else, like that's who you are. So like, may Allah protect us, particularly men. Like you're asking your wife, please make this. Like don't ask your wife to make anything particular because it doesn't really matter. That's a very low thing to do. Like unless you want to, for example, please her and say, oh, sweetheart, can you make this particular thing for me? Because she likes to make something. That's totally different, right? That's a different thing. You're asking in a different way. But generally speaking, like you actually care about this food. Like it doesn't matter what kind of food you have. That's a very low kind of thing that you're like, I really want this kind of food. I really want that kind of food. Like, don't, it shouldn't be low, right? It should be high. Like Allah subhanahu what's the hadith? إن الله يحب معالي الأمور ويكره سفسافها. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves high things and he hates low things, right? Like قيل وقال, he said and she said, like, oh, we don't care. What model, which year, what kind of car is that, or what kind of, I don't know, details about things that really doesn't matter. Right? Food is just an excuse a means to do something or a way to socialize, etc. Right? Oh, please buy this pizza because the kids really like it. Fine. I'll make this particular food because so-and-so likes it. Okay, fine. But in that care about this thing, and then why didn't you make this particular thing? I remember one brother, subhanAllah, he was very particular. His wife would make 3 cooked meals per day. It's like, subhanAllah. Is this the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ? 3 cooked meals per day. Like very specific, and it has to be different things. Like, what a waste of time. Right? As a husband, your job, right, is to, as much as you can, is to manage your wife and help her do the most ibadah. That's not a useful thing at all. Total waste of time. Cooking this or cooking that thing doesn't matter. And as long as you can basic healthy things, it doesn't really matter about anything else. So wives, where are the wives here? Sister Jahana's here, Sister, who else? Sister Sandra. So that's it. Nadir, khalas, it's over. Right? So you have husband and wife here, Sister Sandra and Nadir. So that's it. There's no more mansaf, there's no more mulukhiyya, there's no more maqluba, that's it. It's over. Alhamdulillah. Right? No, it's not true. So a very important thing, we should never judge somebody else, right? So this is classic thing. Classic thing. You go to a khutbah, you listen to a talk, you start judging other people based on what you just heard, right? Never do that. Judge yourself, let everybody else do whatever they want to do. So your husband says, no, I really want I want maqluba like this, right? Particular Palestinian dish, right? I want maqluba like this. It's like harder, right? Not a problem. I'll do it exactly as you like. I'm not going to judge you on your attachment to the dunya or your worldly. Who asked you to judge anybody else? Nobody. So many people do that. They listen to her talk and like, see, I told you nobody's applying it. Like, subhanAllah, brother or sister, you didn't listen to the class. The class is talking to you. You're going to stand. I'm asking you about this, not asking anybody else. So don't judge your wife. Don't judge your husband. Yeah, my husband's like this. My wife's like this. See, my wife's always trying to buy new shoes. Let her buy shoes. That's not your business. You talk about your own zuhud. Don't judge anybody else. Oh my God, my husband's like this. My wife's like this. My kid's like this. Not interested. You apply the deen, right? You apply the high morals, and all you hold them to is basic halal haram, right? That's all that's interested. And we don't judge people. We don't, oh, they're like this or that. My husband's very worldly. My wife is very worldly. We don't do these things. That's very low, and that's that. And you're not Allah to judge other people, right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us to check yourself, right? That was just a joke. Aisha, so this is Kitab Abu Yusuf. This is the Chief Justice of the Abbasid Empire in Kitab al-Athar. He's quoting Aisha radiallahu anha. He said, the family of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam never ate their full for 3 consecutive days, even of bread, until Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away. The dunya was always hard and difficult. So like, why is my life so difficult? Right? That's not actually a problem. As long as you're taking the means, right? You're taking the means to get a halal income. And that's what you're interested in. We're not interested in making money. We're interested in taking the means to make money. You're not interested in passing exams. We're interested in taking the means to pass exams. They're two different things, right? Can't find a job. It's totally fine. It's not a problem. It's not a problem. Can't make enough money. Can't pay off my debts. Can't pass these exams. That's not a problem. You're not obliged to get a job. You're obliged to work to get a job. You're obliged to study for the exam. You're obliged to try. That's all. That's all you're doing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Razzaq. And so having dunya is not a sign that things are good. Oh, mashallah, there's a lot of barakah. People often use this phrase. There was a lot of barakah in that. What did you mean by barakah? Did you mean a lot of dunya? So yeah, that's not barakah. Barakah is the propensity of people to turn to Allah in the situation they're in, be it good or bad. That's called barakah. Barakah is that there's a lot of barakah in that, meaning when I was in that difficulty or in that blessing, I turned to Allah, right? There was a lot of barakah in that wedding, meaning we were there and you felt like dhikr was like coming to you naturally. There was a lot of barakah in that cancer, I mean, you felt like turning to Allah was easy. There's a lot of barakah in that war, like people like forgave each other. There's a lot of barakah in that thing that people turn to Allah. Not that there's lots of money, well, I felt healthy, right? Health is not barakah, they're not the same thing. Wealth is not barakah, they're not the same thing. So things were always very difficult until Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away. When Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away, the dunya poured on us in torrents. It's not a good sign. Right? The Prophet said, I'm not scared that you become poor. I'm scared that you become wealthy. I'm not scared that you live in a poor country. I'm scared that you live in California. I'm not scared. I'm not scared that you are bombs drop on you. I'm scared that you drive around in big cars, right? So anybody who lives in California, like I remember I got married here, right? And so I was asking my brother. My brother's, unfortunately, we're all a bit kind of like very British and kind of cold and I don't know, funny, scathing. I think the word is right. So I asked my brother. I said, "Come on, like, what do you think about California?" It was 2014. He's like, "What do you mean? What do you think about California?" I say, what do you think about California? No, I just got married and da 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 da. Right? He came from a wedding. He says, it's the land of the Dajjal. Like, look at it. Like, we just stole people's properties. We killed 90% of the population. And we're all living here with fantastic salaries, spending more money than we need to on things that aren't worth it. Right. So people who look at, for example, wow, I'm making a lot of money, or alhamdulillah, I have a stable salary. That's not a standard of things being good or bad. That means basically zero. That doesn't mean anything. Like things are good, meaning you're making money and saving money and you can pay off your debts. That doesn't mean anything. What's interesting is you looking at things in a like, so there's nothing wrong with making money in itself, right? But so you working towards making money is a good deed. You making money doesn't mean anything. So you say a lot of barakah, like, oh, I made money, I paid off debts, I got healthy. That doesn't mean anything. That's not called barakah. Barakah is that you turn to Allah. That's tawfiq, turning to Allah. Whether you lived, that you died, you were sick, poor, it doesn't matter. Never got married in your life. That's irrelevant, right? But you say there's a lot of barakah in that thing. It doesn't really mean anything. It's saying that Anas, radiallahu anhu, he had 80, 80, I think he had 50 kids, right? He had like 300 grandchildren, but most of them died. Most of them died because of the plague. So he's Mubarak. He's a Mubarak person. Has the ajr of having these children. But most of them died. So where's the barakah then? Of course, tons of barakah. So that when we look at things like, oh, this is really good or bad, like what's good or bad is, are you turning to Allah in your current moment, whether it's difficult or easy? That's what's interesting. So you're having a burger and you're forgetting about Allah, it's a curse. You're starving and you're forgetting about Allah, it's a curse. You're having a burger and you thank your bottom of your heart, you're thankful to Allah. Like, I'm safe, I have food, I have luxury, I have all these things. There's barakah. You're being shot at and you're remembering Allah with every single bullet that comes through the wall, and you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's barakah. Right? That's barakah, that's tawfiq. That's success, that's the standard. Right? And so the Prophet ﷺ, he lived a simple life, and the dunya came after he passed away. After they passed away. Right? So California, we should be very careful if you live in California, right? We're living in, that means we are living luxuries. Right now I have AC in my back. I think, like, did Fir'aun have AC? Right? In England, we don't have AC. It's not a normal thing to have AC in England. Right? So in California is like ridiculous wealth, ridiculous luxury. Right? And so that's not a good thing. It's a useful tool to be able to make lots of money, because, like, inshallah, you can do lots of things, particularly if you're female, right? And you don't have to pay for anything. It's like, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, I'm making $6,000 a month in California, and I'm building hospitals everywhere in the Muslim world. MashaAllah, fantastic. That's epic. That's amazing. I make $25,000 a month as a doctor, MashaAllah, and you have no idea how many orphanages I've built. Fantastic. But I've made $25,000 a month, and I paid half of it in tax, and the rest going towards my large house that's full of nobody. What was the point? Like, what's the point? So I'm not talking about specifics here. I'm talking about a way of thinking. Like, oh, this is good, right? So the Muslims are, it's good that they've got money. Or, look how amazing the buildings were in Muslim Spain. That does not mean that was successful. That is not a standard of success. That, for example, they had amazing art, right? Or amazing technology. That's not, you know, the standard of success is hearts that are turned to Allah. That is a standard of success, right? We have to stop soon, inshallah. Right, and this is a useful thing as well. This is a hadith, it's mursal, it's a weak hadith. Allahu alam, is it true or not? So anyway, one of the at Badr, there was a young man, right, that was killed, and he died as shaheed. And so, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alamin, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us all shahada, to die as martyrs, and to give our children that blessing as well, inshallah ta'ala. So imagine you're there, and there's a woman, she was uh, wiping the dust off her face of her son. And she was happy. So, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, my son, rejoice in paradise. Like, you did it, boy. I'm glad, I'm proud of you. Okay. And then the Prophet ﷺ says, how on earth do you know? Like, how do you know he's going to Jannah? The Prophet ﷺ said, maybe he used to speak about that which did not concern him, or withhold that which he was able to spend. So this is a ajib statement, right? And then they found on his body that he not only had died as shaheed, but he had tied stones to his stomach, i.e., for the last 3 days, maybe he hadn't eaten, and he's giving other people his food. So this young boy, young teenager, he died as a shaheed at Badr, for crying out loud. And he had preferred others to himself, given his food provisions to other people. And now the Prophet ﷺ is saying, well, how do you know he's going to Jannah? Perhaps he used to speak about that which he did not concern him. So this is why the biggest like slap in the face you can give to your child is give them an iPhone. And anybody, right? A phone is a curse for 99% of the ummah, right? Very few people benefit from having an iPhone. Very, very few people. So having a smartphone, having internet, like it's a curse for 99.9% of the time. Like the amount of haram you're gonna see, right? The amount of haram you're gonna see. Like you just be like, why did I even do that? Why did I even do that? What was the point? Right. And 99% of the time. So we should be very, very careful about this mentality, like just browsing, right? Just wasting time, chatting, saying things, social media. It's like we really shouldn't be on. I was one group for like I was on this one group for about 2 minutes once. Like I joined it to see how much talk there is. Like chit chat is for low people who have no purpose in life. Chit chat is a tool, for example, for relatives. You're talking to your aunt, how you doing? How's your cat? Da, da, da. That's chit chat. It's a tool, right? Chit chat is, for example, you and your wife when you're trying to talk, just trying to like find out what's going on. Start talking about something nothing, right? Prophet showed us that with his wives that have chit chat with his wives. But otherwise, chit chat is for people who are low and have nothing. They're worthless people, right? There's just nothing about them. They're just empty. And I think Jalaluddin Rumi mentions, he said, like an empty can, right? An empty barrel. You hit it, like makes lots of noise, right? But if it's full, it doesn't make much noise. So like noise, like just empty browsing, just like looking at stuff and I'm on Amazon, buy this, whatever. This is low. So here, this person who dies as shaheed, Allahu Alam is the hadith. Is it true or not? Is there something missing from the hadith? Allahu Alam. But the point is, if this is true, it's pretty scary. And so, we should be people of resolve, right? I remember asking, um, what's his name? Sheikh Ahmed Jamal. Sheikh Ahmed Jamal, he was the Mufti of Halab in Aleppo, right? He moved to Jordan. I asked him about music. He just shook his head and said the Sahaba were not a people, didn't have time for music. Like that, like the question is it halal to listen to music? Like they weren't a people of music, they were people of jihad. They're people engaged in communal obligations. There are enough problems in the world for us to solve and be busy with. Fixing your own mistakes, fixing other people's mistakes. That's life, right? As for chit chat, no. So may Allah protect us all and have this mentality that we shouldn't be like just there saying things or talking or sharing things or just browsing. It's like life is serious, right? Uh, you know, and this person died at Badr, subhanAllah. I want to just do one last thing because I've got to go to the next class. I know it says here the Prophet ﷺ said, "How will you be, O people, um, where when your women cross the bounds and your youth become corrupt, right?" And so there's a major problem. I'm not going to beat around the bush, but particularly women's clothing, right? And so men, you could at least say something. You can at least sit down with your wife and say, listen, this is the reality. The way you're dressed, your body is exposed. So this is not halal. You can't do that, right? Or this is way too much makeup for outside. It's like obviously we can see what's going on, right? And our youth, right? Most of us, may Allah forgive us all and guide us and show us our faults. We do not invest in our kids enough. We're too busy with trying to make good money, right? Again, basic salary, that's all we're interested in, and focus on our youth. The Prophet ﷺ said, They said, will that really happen? They said, yes, and even worse. And how will it be when people stop telling people to do what is right and stop telling people to desist in the immoral, right? And so many times, again, it just doesn't happen. People say, oh, they're going to get offended. Oh, it's going to be this. Oh, it's going to be that. There's some basic things like, brother, it's just haram to stop, right? There needs to be some way, direct or indirect, where people actually know this is haram, stop doing it. He said, will that really come to pass? And he said, yes, and even worse. And how will it be when you deem that which is immoral to be good and you deem that which is good to be immoral, right? Fair is foul and foul is fair. Like you become perverted, right? You become perverted, right? And again, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I give an example. Some guy, for example, that is 60 years old, okay? He wants to marry somebody who is much younger than him, and the lady is perfectly happy with it, right? She's not being forced. She's perfectly happy. And they're like, Astaghfirullah, you've already been married twice. Why do you want to get married? It's like, well, what do you want him to do? Go online and look at haram stuff? Because that's what you are happy with. Everyone else is doing that. Everyone else is watching Bollywood and looking at the women dancing on Bollywood. You're happy with that, but you're not happy with this. You're like, oh, astaghfirullah, he's 20 years older than her. Yeah, there are people who are like that. Oh, look, he got married, got a second wife who's like 20 years younger than his other wife. That's immoral. It's not immoral. That's a normal thing to do because that's a normal human way of functioning. You see it as immoral, and you deem that which is good to be immoral, right? We love the haram and we hate the halal, right? Tell your daughter, don't get married because you need to finish your masters, and yet she's doing all sorts of haram things, right? And so we have to realize how perverted we've become because we are far away from the guidance of the Quran, the guidance of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and these things. And so it's very important to understand that we don't focus on our family, we don't do command the right, forbid the wrong. TVs, all kind of things are happening, and it's just okay. And then we actually become perverted. We don't see things in a proper way. May Allah guide us all, and may Allah forgive me for my ignorance and please forgive me if I've said anything that has offended anybody, but I'm, too old to beat around the bush. Inshallah. Okay, we'll stop here. Subhanallah wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.